guys.
Hey guys.
This is Michelle.
And this is Mark.
This is Mark and Michelle.
It is. And we are back for another episode of the same thing. And
we're going to start a new series today.
Yeah, that new series is terms as they relate to autism. Certain words that, or jargon that people in the autism community know. And some of you may not know. Hey, Krista.
Hey, Krista.
How are you? And
Oh, hi, Angie.
Oh, yeah. And so we're going to start in the back of the book, Buried Alive, One Man's Journey Out of Autism, which you can download free at www.healyourautism.com. We have a glossary that gives definitions of many words that people outside the autism community might not know and probably don't know, and some people in the autism community might not know either.
Right. So I had someone read that book who had a grandson with autism but didn't know a lot of these words, and he suggested putting the glossary in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people who deal with autism don't actually know what these words are or what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go through them. We're going to teach them to you. You ready to start?
Mm-hmm. All right.
He's looking at the computer where
we have that
the glossary is.
Let's do this. This is closer. All right. First word in the glossary, and it's in alphabetical order, is Alexithymia, and that is spelled Alexithymia. And
that's for your next spelling bee.
Exactly. The core characteristics of alexithymia are a marked dysfunction in emotional awareness, social attachment, and interpersonal relating. And I was telling Michelle as we sat down that to me, that definition of alexithymia sounds like it's a core issue with autism. And I have a feeling it is, although psychological researchers may have reasons why they didn't put it with autism, but I think it is.
In the glossary in the book, I have a link so you can read more about it if you want.
Exactly. And now, alexithymia for me was really only knowing two emotions, anger and frustration. That was about it. Hardly ever knew any kind of real happiness or joy as an autistic person. It just didn't come through for me. And some of the more subtle ones like compassion and despair, things like that, those I didn't feel at all. And so that's why I'm pretty sure I had alexithymia. Now, emotional awareness, that's yours and others. Social attachment. No, because I didn't get back with people. I didn't keep up my end of relationships at all.
Not at all.
And oddly enough, fiction, reading fiction did nothing for me. It does now. I enjoy it. But I couldn't read fiction because there was no emotional interest to keep me going. And interpersonal relating, again, that's not keeping up your end of the relationship. And interpersonal relating is hard with alexithymia because you're having to read other people's emotional states to be able to respond to them. You know, you're not listening to just words. In fact, that's only a small part of it all. And you've heard us talk about that numerous times through different podcasts and lives. All right, how about move on to the next one?
Okay.
Okay, Asperger's syndrome. And that is not an official diagnosis anymore. That was
Mark's diagnosis.
It was. And then the next year, in May of 2013, the American Psychological Association decided that they would put that just under autism. So now they call it high-functioning autism with Asperger's-like traits. But then they also have levels, which I'm not sure how they do that, like level 1 or level 3. Or I'm not sure what those mean. But Asperger's syndrome is a developmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties in social interaction and nonverbal communication, along with restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior and interests. Sounds like autism. That's because it is. And the Asperger's part is actually the last name of an Austrian physician named Hans Asperger, and he was diagnosing kids with mild autism back in the 1920s, but he didn't call it Asperger's syndrome. In fact, he didn't even call it autism, because the word autism wasn't coined until the late 1940s by a Canadian physician named Leo Kanner. I think that's Kanner. And he met Hans Asperger at a symposium once, and he thought it was very interesting because Hans Asperger seemed to have all the traits of Asperger syndrome.
Oh.
And he said he wasn't very talkative. He just sat there quietly, and if somebody asked him a question, he'd answer. But he did not carry on a conversation, which I thought was interesting because that came from another doctor, a Canadian doctor, Leo Kanner, who was working with autistic kids in Canada and the U.S. in the 40s. So very telltale sign there, I thought. ASPE, here we go. ASPE is short for Asperger's. So an ASPE is a person with Asperger syndrome. And you'll hear people use that some, but most now just call it HFA or high-functioning autis or autistics or whatever. And all right, autism. Well, this is the whole meat of everything and the reason that we talk about that and other health issues. Autism or autism spectrum disorder, ASD.
Hi, Marlo.
Marlo refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behavior, speech, and nonverbal communication. Does autism differ from something like Asperger's syndrome? Truthfully, no. Because, and here's why I say that. When I was recovering from my Asperger's syndrome, I met some people who were recovering their children from more severe autism. And what I mean by more severe, in this case, was nonverbal. He'd hit himself in the head. He would hit others, bite, and that type of thing. And his mother and I talked extensively about her experiences recovering him and my experiences in recovery. And at noon, Marlo.
12:30.
Oh, 12:30, excuse me.
12:30 Central.
Every
day.
Right. And so this mother, she said, she interviewed us, and she said, your experiences sound exactly like what I saw my son going through as he recovered. And I thought, okay, then that means that I definitely had autism, because if I recovered the same way as a nonverbal child and went through the same processes of recovery, then Asperger's syndrome was definitely autism, right? That's just logical. So autism, all of you have a basic idea of what it is, and you've heard us talk about all the ins and outs of it over the past couple years. But one of the cats is doing his business, and right in the middle of the lawn.
I don't know if you can hear it.
I don't know. It's pretty loud back there. He sounds like he's shoveling gravelly snow. But anyway, broad-ranging conditions characterized by social skills problems. In other words, interpersonal relating, repetitive behaviors, whether that's stimming or such as flapping your hand, jumping up and down, rocking back and forth, organizing things. I was a compulsive organizer. I did that a lot. I don't
remember that
Yeah.
part of you. I do remember your pretty books were arranged.
Yeah, and that was one of them.
But I just thought that was because you worked in a bookstore and you just liked that. So
I did that long before I worked in a bookstore.
Oh, okay. Well, it never dawned on me that was autism.
In fact, that was one of the things that made me wonder if I didn't have it.
Oh.
Because I had seen a picture of a child who had arranged his books from tallest to smallest and in color, from blue to, which that was difficult because not all books are the same color, and blue books aren't all tall and red books aren't all small. So, that was probably mind-boggling. Yes. And so, but speech and nonverbal communication, we talked about that. All of those difficulties signify a possibly autistic brain. Now, does that mean that your brain is permanently autistic? No, it doesn't. Because I had a woman tell me the other day, you can't heal autism, and I'm sorry that you got conditioned, she said, into believing that you had a wrong brain. My response was this. I said, I conditioned myself to not accept my autism and my brain. Well, she erased her reply yesterday.
Oh, she did?
She did. And
Wow.
so I wasn't nasty, and she was very nice about it. She was very polite, which is very unusual for an autistic adult. All right, bacteria. Bacteria are microscopic single-celled organisms that thrive in diverse environments. They even thrive in hydrochloric acid at the bottom of gold mines. In fact, they use certain types of bacteria to change that acid into a milder form so they can pump it out of the mine and get back into the mine. Archaeans do that. I remember for applied
You
microbiology.
love Archaeans.
I do. They're interesting.
They're fun. You almost said that.
They're fun. Archaeans are fun. I need that bumper sticker on the back of my car. Archaeans are fun.
All right, out there. Somebody needs to make a bumper sticker for Mark.
Exactly. But archaeans are a type of bacteria. So anyway, and it says, these organisms can live in the soil, the ocean, and inside the human gut.
Well, inside the human everything.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Those aren't the only three places they live.
Right.
You know, they live everywhere else too. And your food, who knows where else. So, all right, let's move on to...
And that would to relate to us as strep, mostly.
Well, exactly. And now we may have defined viruses in here somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. They're another microorganism. You'll sometimes hear people say microbes or microbial life or microorganisms. Those three terms are more general than bacteria, viruses, or single-celled organisms like protozoans or protoplasm or something like that. All right, chelation. A lot of you have heard this. Some of you may have not. Chelation therapy is an antidote for poisoning by mercury, arsenic, and lead. Works on others as well, but chelating agents convert these metal ions into a chemically and biochemically inert form that can be excreted. Yes, that works.
Explain that.
Okay. What happens is these chelating agents, now in this case, cilantro, or with what we do with the heavy metal detox smoothie.
Wild blueberries.
Wild blueberries. Spirulina, dulse, and...
sneezing.
Yeah, barley grass juice powder.
Yeah.
All of those things, I don't know exactly how they work scientifically except for the cilantro. Blueberries are antioxidants, so they keep further damage from occurring. But, well, if they're antioxidants, I bet that the molecules, the antioxidants in blueberries are strong enough to keep oxygen atoms from bonding and causing damage. In that case, they probably also bond to metals just as easily and carry metals out. So
you're getting it live right here, the science brain.
Right. And so, but what happens is the metals, they take them and either break them into smaller parts into ions by removing an electron or breaking 2 atoms of it in half, and then bind to it and carry it out of the body. And
well, that's cool to know. I'd like to see a picture of that. Oh, he's going to find a picture. Oh, he's going to make one.
So the red is oxygen. All right. And then let's do this. Actually, this would be the best way to do it. So, all right, see that? That's oxygen. That is hydrogen. All right, so this is an OH molecule, and it has a negative charge because there's no hydrogen attached to it right here. This negative charge, all right, this is going to be a mercury.
Make sure you're on here too.
Because this is silver, the color of this little ball is silver. We're going to say that this is a metal like mercury or lead, aluminum, or whatever, right? This is going to be the heavy metal. And so This thing technically has 8 spots to bond to it. I'm not quite sure why, but I'm sure mercury doesn't have that many. Anyway, but let's just say this is mercury. All right. What happens is, let's say that this is the chelating chemical, the OH. All right. This is what's going to cause the metal ions to bind. Is going to bind to the metal ions.
Would that be an antioxidant, or is that something else?
You could say this is an antioxidant because it's keeping oxygen from bonding to DNA or tissue, the cell somewhere on the outside. And well, here, let's do alpha lipoic acid.
He's going to do alpha lipoic acid.
No, I'm not building that. That's huge.
Oh, well, why'd you say that?
Because we're just going to assume this is an antioxidant,
Okay.
like in chelation therapy or cilantro or the dulse or whatever. Let's do cilantro because we're talking about medical meeting. All right. So this is the cilantro. This is the metal. And a cilantro molecule, whatever it is in the cilantro that comes along, right? Comes along.
Make sure you see
and bonds to the metal. This is the metal. Here's the metal free floating around in your brain or in your brain tissue. Here comes the chelation chemical.
I feel like we need some music for this.
Yeah, bonds to the metal, right, and then carries it out of your system and disappears.
Yay!
See?
That's great, Mark. Thank you.
That was great. That was dramatic, huh? I almost expect Snidely Whiplash to pop up.
Nobody's going to know who Snidely Whiplash is.
Some of us are. But look him up. I'm sure you can find him. That's what Wikipedia is for. So chelation therapy is meant to remove heavy metals from your system. There's the Andy Cutler method, and then the heavy metal detox smoothie that we use. And for those of you folks who need the science behind that, I've seen 2 papers where scientific researchers have used to remove mercury and lead from people using cilantro. And if you want more information, contact me. I'll give you the papers. If you're too skeptical to believe it, this isn't for you. All right, let's move on to compassion. All right.
Wow, how did this make it into our book?
Well, one of the big core areas of autism is the inability or having trouble with emotional awareness, right? And alexithymia is a distinct problem. So compassion, if you can't recognize your own compassion, how can you have it for someone else? If you can't recognize someone else's compassion, how can you recognize that they care for you, right? That is a big problem, right? I've heard a lot of adults on the spectrum say, well, I have warm, fuzzy feelings for my boyfriend, or I felt more. I apparently was in a much smaller subset of people with autism who just couldn't recognize any of that. So compassion. Compassion literally means to suffer together. With emotion, among emotion researchers, it is defined as the feeling that arises when you are confronted by another's suffering and feel motivated to relieve that suffering. That's compassion.
You did that for me today.
I did.
And then you felt bad.
Afterwards, exactly.
Sorry. Thank you.
Right.
Sorry.
Well,
Thank you.
but it's also it also helps in dealing with other people because at the vet's office there's a woman who can be somewhat abrasive. Now, I know I can be abrasive, so maybe her and I
just don't go together.
Right, and
you're like one of those things that repels.
There you go. And she's like one of those things that repels as well. And so, that being the case, I had enough compassion to know that she wouldn't still be employed by that vet if that particular vet didn't think she was good. And she's been there for as long as I can remember. And so 7 years now, 6, 7 years. And that being the case, I know that she does a good job. It's just her style of handling people is rough around the edges. So I had enough compassion to know that she was more than just her abrasive attitude.
But before, you would not have been able to do that.
Exactly. When I was autistic, I could not do that.
I think that's enough for now.
Yeah, all right. How about we end it here? It's 20 minutes exactly. Guys, continue on with the celery juice. Continue on with the heavy metal detox smoothie. Continue on with the lemon water. And definitely go to www.healyourautism.com and download our free ebook, Buried Alive, One Man's Journey Out of Autism. And Michelle put that together, and it's an excellent book. Then, once you read that book, you're going to want to start your healing journey yourself. So, you can go to the next page of our website and purchase our book called Heal Your Autism's Do-It-Yourself Guide, Healing Begins in Your Kitchen. And it shows you step by step what we did to get where we're at and where you can get where we're at. And there's a bunch of freebies that come with the book as well. You definitely want to do that. Now, coaching is going to be a necessity because you're going to have questions. About the process. You're going to have specific situations that you need help with. And so that means you contact us and you can be part of our group coaching, or you can do one-on-one coaching. We'll set that up for you, and we'll handhold you all the way through to your wellness, so to speak.
Okay, I feel like I was the side man today.
That's all right. You're an important side man. You're there for comic relief.
I'm the comic relief today.
There you go. All right, guys.
All right.
We'll see you tomorrow.
See you. Have a great day.
Uh-huh.